Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. On behalf of Mata Tripta Gurukar and Nath Pragas USA, I welcome you all to the opening meet of Sikh Women Book Club. And I laud the interest of all the participants who've committed to set out on a collective journey in which we will read and explore some of the best timeless classics that have been written across the human civilization and have been contributed by various traditions across time. In 2022, our focus will be to read some of the best known works of the mysticism genre as well as creative writing genre. And these books that we've chosen are most coveted in their genres, and it's very heartening to see that the 30 plus books that we have chosen, the sign-ups for all of them is actually complete. So this is a gleaming yet a very humbling testimony to our thirst for knowledge. So I congratulate you all for signing up for this moment. Now this book club, gives us a very unique opportunity to experience these texts as gateways, and these gateways are ever expanding. And these gateways are going to be opened up by someone else than us, someone else than our bodily confine. So each one of us will be opening these gateways for the others. And this is not just going to start our journey, but it's going to trigger and nudge journeys for several of us, no matter we are present in this room or no matter we are watching on live or where we are. But this is a moment that's going to get recorded in the history. These book reviews are going to get recorded, and we can really anticipate that through coming times, people will get connected to the wisdom that lies in these books. Now, these gateways are actually introducing us, opening the realms that are actually beckoning at us. You see, something that has a larger gravitational force attracts us to it as opposed to the other way around. So these realms have a lot of force which they have chosen to extend on us. They have chosen to extend their influence on us. And each one of us will find that these realms are pulling us in very unique ways, in very personal ways. And these realms, as if we are truly listening to these book reviews, they will plant the seed, the sapling of an understanding in our minds. And that seedling, that sapling is going to lead us to actually picking up the book and developing a personal journey through the book. So each one of us are really triggers for others, so the others can also pick that book and start a relationship with the underlying idea, the underlying epistemology that book resonates. The wisdom is timeless. This wisdom was experienced by the author of this book in his or her time and space. And that wisdom is beckoning at us, which is why we have chosen to read the book, or might I say that role. So this is a historical moment in my mind. And through the framework of this wisdom, because it's a universal wisdom, because it was experienced by people who walked the earth ahead of us, before us, and we are now also grasping that wisdom is becoming truly universal and truly cosmic because it's cut across the time and space. And having such framework in mind actually enables us to perceive the cosmic and timeless spirit of the universal guru, the cosmic guru, the eternal guru. So we need this wisdom-based framework to perceive the eternal Shabad. This is a profound journey, my friends, my sisters. And again, I extend my heartfelt felicitations to you for onboarding this collective journey together, and not just starting this journey for ourselves, but for several of us who are around us. During the course of this session, we are going to have 2 book review presentations. The first is going to be the book of Mirdad, and the second is going to be Katha Upanishads book review, which is going to be presented by Gurpreet Kaur. we will be proceeding with this session in two parts. In the first part, I will present this review, and then we will have a short break, and thereafter we will have Gurpreet Penji talking about the other book review, and then towards the end, we will basically highlight for ourselves what the next session's proceedings will be, and then we will adjourn. With that said, let's tune our hearing and open our minds up to what the book of Mirdad has to tell us. We'll start out with the brief biographical information about the author. Poet and philosopher Mikhail Nami was born in Lebanon in 1889. He lived in Palestine as a child and attended the theological seminary in Poltava, the Ukraine, from 1906 to 1911. In 1911, he moved to the United States, where he attended the University of Washington, Seattle, before moving to New York City. He returned to Lebanon in 1932. In New York, he was associated with Khalil Gibran, a fellow member of the New York Pen League, an organization that promoted Arab writers and writing. He's widely recognized as one of the most important figures in modern Arabic literature and one of the most important spiritual writers of the 20th century. Nami is one of the most enduring and influential members of the Al-Rabita Al-Kamaya, which reset the course of the Arabic modern literature and liberated it from the chains of fossilization and centuries of decade traditions. Amongst his best books is the Book of Mirdad, a mystical text first published in Lebanon in 1948, about which the mystic Osho says, "There are millions of books in the world, but the Book of Mirdad stands out far above any book in existence." The book is about a monastery that stood where Noah's Ark came to rest after the flood subsided. It describes the very nature of human existence and man's relation to the God within. It's told through the eyes of the monks as their lives change when a mystical stranger, Mirdad, enters the monastery. Nami was living in East Beirut at the time of his death in 1988. He penned upwards of 40 works during his lifetime across different genres such as poetry, drama, story, novels, autobiography, and criticism and biography. Apart from the Book of Mirdad, the Memoirs of a Vagrant Soul, or The Pitted Face, which is a translation of his Arabic work, Mudakirat al-Arkas, and Khalil Gibran, a biography which is a translation of his Arabic work, Gibran, Khalil Gibran, are two other works which are important and popular in the Western circles. So now jumping into the book review, themes and quotes from the work. The story starts out with the narrator reminiscing of a monastery called the Ark, perched on the altar peak in the Milky Mountains. The local mountaineers, with whom he chances to spend a particular summer in the shade of the peak, inform him of the legend associated with the Ark. The legend had laying a curse upon the abbot of the Ark that bound him to the monastery's ground and deprived him of speech. The legend claimed that the abbot continued to be seen roaming the grounds of the monastery, but not a single word was evocable from him. This legend intrigued the narrator, and the narrator set out to ascend the mountain and discover the abbot for himself. The ascension to the mountain turned out to be very arduous, traumatic, and brutal. The narrator actually gets bereaved of all his provisions during the journey. At the end, he has no food, no clothing, no energy, and no spirit left. And in this state, he falls into an abyss, a space where he falls, and when he lands, he's greeted by none other than the abbot himself, in whose search he had set out. The abbot recounts his life at the Ark, of the coming of the stranger named Mirdad, of Mirdad's growing influence on Ark's inhabitants, of the animosity that he held against Mirdad, and of Mirdad delivering a book to him, that is the narrator, indicating that it be delivered to the seeker who would come to the peak enduring the grueling circumstances that the narrator had endured during his accent. Thereafter, the abbot, having handed the book to the narrator per Mirdad's bidding, turns into a boulder, a stone, and commences his wait for Mirdad to return and resurrect him into the life of eternity. You see, the book of Mirdad, therefore, symbolically stands as a book for the seeker, a seeker who's foremost driven by a higher force, who's willing to commit to a higher journey, and even though it may be replete with hazards and turbulence, is driven to continue. The book expands and expounds on a journey of realization and learning which Mirdad sets his 7 companions on. The 8th companion, the senior of the ark, Shamadam, the abbot, while being one of the recipients of his teachings, chooses to remain veiled, swaddled, and untouched by the wisdom that flowed from Mirdad. The book unfolds in the form of a series of dialogues that Mirdad undertakes with the ark's companions and the visitors at the ark on many a profound themes and matters concerning life, life's beyond, and its reunion with the fountain from which life emerges. The dialogues that Mirdad, or the master, delivers to his companions are suffixed with the phrase, "So I taught Noah, so I taught you," which suggest that he delivered his gospels during the tempestuous times when Noah's family was situated in the ark, during the time when earth was in the midst of the flood. This book review attempts to quote some of his profound sayings on some of these themes while recognizing that not everything can be covered, for we are constrained by time. Mirdad first off calls upon the companions to recognize one's eyes as comprising several layers of veils, and lips as several layers of seals, and urges them to break those veils and seals. He says, "Ask not of things to shed their veils. Unveil yourselves, and things will be unveiled. Nor ask of things to break their seals. Unseal yourselves, and all will be unsealed." The key to self-unveiling and self-unsealing is a word which each one of you forever holds between your lips. Of words, it's the slightest, but the greatest. Mirdad calls it the creative word, and he recognizes I as the creative word, and states, "Your I is but your consciousness of being, silent and incorporeal, made vocal and corporeal. As is your consciousness, therefore so is your I. As is your I, so is your world. If your I be clear and definite of meaning, your world is clear. And if then your words will never be a maze, nor should your deeds be ever nests of pain. If your I be hazy and uncertain, your world is hazy and uncertain. And then your words are but entanglements, and then your deeds are hatcheries of pain." He states that God's I is God's eternal only world. In it, the consciousness supreme, or the primal consciousness, is made manifest. Mirdad calls the primal consciousness the word, which is God's I, and the spirit of understanding as the trinity of being. These three are one, and this one is three. Mirdad says that man's I creates foes and friends, while in reality the God and his creation are one. What may be a foe to a man one day may be friend to him the other day, and vice versa. On love, he says, "Love is the law of God. You live that you learn to love. You love that you may learn to live. No other lesson is required of man. Love is not a virtue, it is a necessity, more so than bread and water, more so than light and air. Let no one pride himself for loving, for love needs no one to exalt it. In fact, love will exalt the heart that it finds worthy of itself." He prophesies about creative silence. He says, "Speech is best an honest lie. Refrain from speaking much. Out of 1,000 words uttered, there may be one and only one that need in truth be uttered. The rest but cloud the mind and stuff the ear, and irk the tongue and blind the heart as well. How hard, oh how hard, is to write the word that indeed be said. Out of 1,000 words written, there may be one and only that need in truth be written. The rest are wasted in ink and paper, and minutes given feet of lead instead of wings of light. How hard, oh how hard it is to write the word that needs in truth be written. He says of prayer, you pray in vain when you address yourselves to any other gods but yourselves. For you, in you, is the power to attract, as in you is the power to repel. And in you are the things that you would attract, as in you are the things that you would repel. When Himbal, a companion whose father dies, asks Mirdad, the master, to talk about death, he says, because your father is now in a light to which your eye is not accustomed, and in a form which you cannot discern, you say your father is no more. But man's material self, no matter where transported and how changed, is bound to cast a shadow until dissolved in the light of man's God, self. When you pass out of the cycle known as life into the cycle known as death, and with your thirsts unquenched for the earth and hungers unappeased for her passions, then the magnet of earth will draw you again to her bosom, and the earth shall suckle you, and time shall wean you life after life and death after death, until you wean yourself once and for all of your own will and the accord. Benoon, one of the companions, probes the master on logic and faith, and the master informs, the only use of logic is to rid man of logic and lead him to faith, which leads to understanding. Logic is immaturity, weaving its nets of gossamer, wherewith it aims to catch the behemoth of knowledge. When logic comes of age, it strangles itself in its nets and then becomes transmuted into faith, which is the deeper knowledge. Logic is a crutch for the cripple, but a burden for the swift of foot, and a greater burden still for the winged. Logic is faith in dotage, dotage as in a state of decline. Faith is logic, come of age. When your logic comes of age, Benoon, as soon it will, you will no longer speak of logic. When Simsim, the oldest cow in the stables of the ark, had been ailing for 5 days and would not touch any food or water, and Shamadam sent out for a butcher to slaughter the cow and make a gain on the sale of her meat, the master's sermons on old age as this: a dreadful burden is old age to man as well as to the beast. And men have made it doubly so by their neglectful heartfulness. Upon a newborn babe, they lavish their utmost care and affection, but to an age-burdened man, they may reserve their indifference more than their care, and their disgust more than their sympathy. Just as impatient they are to see a suckling grown into manhood, just so impatient are they to see the old man swallowed by the grave. The very young and the very old are equally helpless, but the helplessness of the young conscripts the loving, sacrificial help of all, while the helplessness of the old is able to command but the grudging help of few. Verily, the old are more deserving of sympathy than the young. When Benoon mildly reproved the master for wasting his breath to the crowd that had come to attend the day of wine, a day of celebration at the monastery, and opines that truth should not be preached indiscriminately to all, but only to a chosen few, the master says, the seed of truth is in all men and things. Your work is not to sow the truth, but to prepare the favoring season for its springing up. All things are possible in eternity. Therefore, despair of no man's freedom, but preach the message of release to all with equal faith and zeal, to the non-yearning and to the yearning. For the non-yearning will surely come to yearn, and the now unfledged shall someday preen their pinions in the sun, and with their wings shall cleave the farthest and the most inaccessible reaches of the sky. On Abhimar's imploring to know about the great nostalgia as in longing, on how home, no sooner is the new home built, that they find it so small as so stuffy as the old, and so they keep on demolishing and building, never ceasing the cycle. But they never build the home that really gives them the comfort and the freedom they crave. Unlike this, the great nostalgia is emitted by the heart and not by the senses. It shuts away the heart as mist, effused by the sea and land, obliterates both land and sea, and also as the mist bereaves the eye of visible reality, making itself the sole reality. So this nostalgia subdues the feelings of the heart and makes itself the feeling paramount, and seemingly so formless and aimless and blind as the most, and yet like the mist, it teems with forms unborn, is clear of sight and very definitive of purpose. In the rest of the book, Mirdad unveils the cosmic truth on the themes of creditors and debtors, of the judgment day and judgment, of the omni-will, the male, the female, the marriage, celibacy, sin, night, mother, ovum, etc. And this does play a significant role in fortifying the reader's spiritual edifice. I now like to talk about the style that the author uses to document this work. But before we do that, let's preface with the point that Mikhail Nami was a man of innate religious feeling. He was born as an Orthodox Christian in 1889 in the Lebanon, but he had wide interest in Buddhism, Hinduism, and the Muslim Sufism. All this widened his outlook on matters concerning religion that he almost came to preach a faith of his own, which, although broadly based on Christian teachings, came to embrace elements from almost every faith that humanity has known. During his formative years, he found that several of his inquiries about the nature of religion and its relationship with man were not being satisfactorily addressed by the Orthodox Church. It is often said that much like Leo Tolstoy, who was a Russian writer, he devised his own interpretation of spirituality and took influence from Tolstoy's work, the book Confession, which Tolstoy wrote in the ending part of his life. In this book, Tolstoy re-examines Christian orthodoxy and subsequent spiritual awakening and delves about the fleeting nature of life and the value of existence. This book follows a descriptive, free-flowing writing style where Tolstoy candidly states his insights, failures, disillusions, etc., traversing through fables from diverse religions and formulating a very personal interpretation of what God and Christianity meant to him. Nami's writing, the Book of Mirdad, in my opinion, lies at the confluence of mysticism and contemplative religious philosophy. He designates the human eye to be the microcosm contained in the God's eye, and contemplates the existence of a holy triune where understanding vivifies the word and binds into consciousness. Nami follows a descriptive style of writing and intersperses occasional poetry into his work. Following a blend of descriptive style as well as poetry, his style lends him to freely assimilate the spiritual imports of the myriad of his personal experiences and influences to formulate his unique conception of God and state his philosophy by leveraging the harmony among diverse ideas stemming from different streams of faith. At the end, I like to talk about my personal experience and the influence that I've taken from this book. So having gone through this book twice, I'll say in truth that I cannot claim that I've read this book. I've gone through the book twice. Each time it's been a new experience. I don't think I'll be able to read this book ever throughout my lifetime. I might be able to contemplate on it in different ways and forms every time I go through it, but to make a claim that I'll be able to read this book is not forthrightly coming to me. For every reading of this book draws deep mediation and speaks anew, no matter how many times it's been read. You see, for like an overarching ocean wave that overpowers oneself, no matter how much one is prepared to withstand its impact, this book humbles the mind, shows that the mind needs to empty itself, seek higher wisdom, and perhaps our own definition of what God and spirituality mean to us. It provokes us to have that conversation from within. What is it that God means to each one of us?
what is it that higher wisdom means to each one of us. Not what we have heard from our seniors and elders in the community, but what is it that we've imbibed from around us that enables us, propels us to formulate our own unique definition of what God means to us. The higher wisdom is the one that ushers us on a journey to discover the pathway from our I to the I of the consciousness supreme, the primal consciousness. Reading this book draws the realization that wisdom enshrined in textual traditions of our world is our forever teacher. And in the forming of our disciplehood towards these books, there lies a powerful prospect of enabling the initiation of our own journey to finding our own definition of what God means to us. And further, that surrendering to a higher wisdom is our only respite from the woes and loquaciousness of our I. Higher wisdom does not necessarily address one's superficial inquiries, those that stem from the need to showcase one's stature, one's standing, one's awareness of facts. But its salient characteristic is that it self-triggers an inherent dialogue with the centers of delusion that mar the surface of our conscious, subconscious, and unconscious selves. And slowly and steadily, the higher wisdom takes us into its stride, taking our action and thinking under its aegis, thereby narrowing the chasm between our I and the I of the consciousness supreme, the I of the Parbrahm Parmeshwar. This book will be my companion, my aid in my journey. I invite you to make it a part of yours. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. At this time, I'd like to thank you all for listening and experiencing the words. I could see that there was thoughtfulness in several of the pairs of eyes that I happened to chance a look at. It does seem to have spoken to all of you in some way or shape or form. At this point in time, we'll take a very brief break and we will reconvene to learn about what lies for us in Katha Upanishad's wisdom. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So today the book that I'm going to present is called Katha Upanishad. It is one of the main Upanishad and is in the narrative form. So that means it's in a storytelling form. It's very, very philosophical. It's I find it hard book to read because I had to literally read it 2 times, 3 times, and I'll try now to convey it to you as much in the best form as I can. So it is popularly known as the dialogue with death. And some writers, as Max Mueller, has mentioned it as the secret doctrine of life. So before I start this book, I want to talk about the Upanishad part, the second word first. What are Upanishads? Upanishads are the highest form of knowledge. I would say they are above any religion, but they are the ancient texts. Like they are important part of ancient Indian tradition. They touch, so it is the key to realize the ultimate consciousness, the real self. That's what they touch. The real self, the real soul inside you. The realization, the knowledge, this is what they teach us. And the main teaching is purely on philosophy, poetry, mysticism, universal reality. Basically, this is what they teach. They are also, the rishis in past, they have used like stories or narration. They narrated it to their pupils to convey their messages. So it's in a very narrative, some of them are in a very narrative form too. Upanishad, I'll divide it into 3 words. Upa, so that's the prefix. It is from whom, or which will bring us near to our soul. Destroy our ignorance, they say. Some has also described it as that, come and sit near me and I'll destroy your delusions about life. What you think is right, I'll destroy that, those illusions that you have. Or some has also mentioned it as, let the fire be lit. Lit that fire inside you. So there are total around 108 Upanishads. So 12 of them are the central, the main ones. And Katha Upanishad is one of the main central Upanishads. So we are talking about the main Upanishads. Geographically, the early Upanishads were written in northern India, like the upper Indus Valley or human foothills or the Vindhya mountain range. That's when they were written first, so towards the northern side of India. Very, very early, like 600 to 300 BCE range. So before Gita, before Vedas, not before Vedas, but before Gitas. So there's no set format. Either some are poetic, the 12 main Upanishads, some are poetic, some are narrative, some are philosophical, some are intuitive. This is how they are written. So now the question rises, who are we, or what are we? We truly are the inner self. The outer shell is just the shell. Who we are, what we think from inside, always. Whatever we are thinking from inside, that's who we truly are. And that's what we need to look for. That's what the journey is. The Atman, the inner self, that's what our journey is. By the way, the senses actually are made to look outside. So normally our 5 senses, we are made to look outside, but we have to look inside us. What's inside us? That's what we need to look. Shankaracharya, in his famous quote for Vedanta, has once said, Tat Tvam Asi. It means, thou art that. That means, you are that. Further, it means, you are Brahman. So, it's a very strong word. Maybe towards the end, I'll be able to explain it better. But he said, you are the whole universe. We are the whole universe. That's who we are within us. So now I'll talk a little bit about Vedantas too. Vedantas are the cutting edge of knowledge. So Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and Gita, these are the triple foundations of Vedanta. By the way, in Upanishads, whatever the texts that are used are called mantras. Later on, it was added in Gitas and known as shlokas. So that's how it goes. So this the school of Vedanta has created lots of philosophers, spiritual masters. Even Shankara is a student of that, who's also known as Adi Shankar or Shankaracharya. So that great philosopher was a product of school of Vedanta. And like this the Katha Upanishad it's one of his commentaries. He translated it. And these scriptures, they are originally in Sanskrit, very, very cryptic language, very, very difficult to translate from how he translated. So he translated all of them, most of them. So this is how it begins. Now I'll move on to Katha Upanishad. So I'll come to the first word, Kat. So some people call it Katha Upanishad, Katha Upanishad. It's not Katha Upanishad, it's Kat. So Kat is the name of the rishi. So this is how it is. In olden times, rishi used to have certain students. So whatever the knowledge they used to acquire from from their experience, they used to tell it to the kids or the students who deserve it. So he's getting that knowledge from wherever he's getting it from. So he used to convey it to the students. That's how these Upanishads were written. And this particular Katha Upanishad was written in the Krishna Yajurveda. So there are 4 Veds. I'll very briefly explain. One is Rig Ved, Sam Ved, Yajurveda, and Atharva Ved. So Yajurveda has 2 further branches called Shukla Yajurveda and Krishna Yajurveda. So this Katha was written in Krishna Yajurveda. So this is the history. And this Katha has 119 mantras and consists of 2 chapters, which is also called Adhyayas. And it has 3 sections called Valli. So that's how they have described it. So the chapters are called Adhyay, the normal. And the sections further is called Vallis. So there are, total of 6 sections there. And it has a narrative form. So there will be a storytelling. So that's how, it has been narrated. And the key features are, it touches everything. Atman, Brahman, Samsar, and Dharman. Everything it, covers. So I'm trying to touch what I understood from this book, and I'm going to explain it to you. So this is how the narration goes. So we are just laying out a foundation for the Upanishad that, so for the first few. So there's this boy called Nachiketa. He's around between 5 and 7 years of age. This is, I've figured out, so nobody has the right age, but it's between 5 or 7, very young boy. His father, Vajasravasa, has performed a yagya, which we called a Vishwajit sacrifice. So being desirous of heavenly rewards. So where you have to give up everything that you possess, like literally everything, but the valuable thing. You have to give out the valuable things. So idea of the sacrifice has always been to freely give just for the joy of giving. But if the sacrifice, but the whole purpose and the merit of sacrifice is lost if the giver entertains the least thought of name, fame, or individual benefit. If the giver, if a slight thought of while giving, if that name, fame, or personal benefit comes in between, it's gone. It won't no good. So now the thing is, now he said that I'm going to donate these cows. So the cows that he was donating has lost all their vigor. They cannot be milked. They cannot be. They couldn't even eat grass. They cannot they lost everything that they had, can't even give birth and stuff like that on the last stage of life. So even the people who were receiving them were like, what are we going to do with these cows? How are we going to take care of them? So Nachiketa, his son, he saw all this. And he was like, my father is donating these cows, but this is no good, because instead of doing this good, he's further going to be, it's the opposite, that's going to happen to him. So it's, nothing will come good out of it. So he questioned his father, that I am your, I am your valuable property. Who are you going to give me to? The father ignored him. He was like, so he was doing his work. So he kept on asking, because how kids are. Father, I am your valuable property. Who are you going to give me to? So second time he asked. The third time when he asked, so father angrily said, death I give you. So I give you to death. Okay, he said that. And if he said that, then it has to be fulfilled. So Nachiketa, being a boy, who loves his father, and he wanted to do good for his father. So thought, if I'll go, it'll do some good to him, or give him like Swarglok and stuff like that. So he went to Yam, king of death. When he went there, Yam was not there. So he had to literally wait for 3 days and 3 nights. And so when Yamraj came back, people told him, there is this little boy who's waiting for you for 3 days and 3 nights, and we offered him food and water, and he didn't take any. So, okay, Yamaraj went to him, and he was very happy. He was very happy to see him, that this boy has so much in him that he waited for me. So he said, okay, I offer you 3 boons. 3 boons means 3 wishes. In Hindi, it's called Vardhan. I offer you 3 boons. Okay, so Nachiketa said, okay, the first boon he asked for is, he's a very practical boy too. He said, I don't want to die right now. I want to go back to earth. And my father should not be angry at me. He should be happy to see me, and please don't make him miserable or be guilty about what he's done. So Yam said, all right, so that's fine. This is easy. I'll send back to you to earth. Your father won't be angry, and he'll be happy, and he'll sleep peacefully at night. This is what the text say, that he'll sleep peacefully for several, at night. Okay, so first, right now we are still we're still building up the narrative. It's for the Upanishad. So the second boon he asked for, that people are performing this sacrifice, the yagn, to go to Swarglok, So to people, so this is Nachiketa, so so people to go to heaven. So like how his father performed. So please now show me the path of heaven. What shall I do to achieve that? So this is what his second boon was, which I'm not going to go in detail, but this I'm going to just slightly touch it, that this is what most of us do. We come here, we look for, either we'll go for Swarglok or Narklok, we'll come back here, Swarglok, Narklok. That's what the journey that mostly souls go through. But now the main narration is going to start. The third boon, what he asked for the third one. He said, after listening to Yamraj, he said, heaven is still temporary, I want something permanent. I want the secret of immortality. What is immortality? I want to, so heaven is nothing in comparison to the infinity. So what is beyond Swarg, Nark, or beyond this universe? What is that? What is beyond that? So it means transcending the limitation of time. He wanted to go beyond that. What is beyond Swarg and beyond heaven? Let's not talk about Nark, but what is beyond heaven? This is what he said, I'm looking for permanent solution. I want a permanent solution. So, so he wanted to break free from the human bondage, and this is what is Upanishad is looking for, and this is what is Nachiketa was looking for too. Transcending the king of the world, I'll give you thousands, I'll make you a great warrior, I'll give you whatever you want. So he said, Nachiketa said, that's temporary. I'm looking for permanent solution. I'm looking, and now where it shows his real perseverance. He replied, because all these material pleasures will not satisfy me in long term, that's why I'm looking something beyond that. He said, I want the secret. What is my true nature? What is my reality? I need to know. So now the real narrative of Upanishad begins. It says, Yam said, this is a very unique knowledge. Only aspirant of your nature will be able to grasp this knowledge. Disguising between what is temporary and what is permanent, you have showed your perseverance. So you have chosen the righteous path. So I'm going to tell you now what is immortality, what is the secret of death. So idea of dharma. Now he says there are two paths which are presented to the human beings. One is the path of Shreya, and one is called the path of Preya. So Preya is something which is very pleasant and sweet that draws our attention. Okay, this is easy, this is what we want to do. They become the slaves of death. They come in the clutches of death. So they are scared of death, they are in the clutches of death, and they are going to be born again, die again, born, they'll do something wrong again, born again, die. I mean, they in the sense, we all are in this. So the main motive of this Upanishad is getting your perspective right. Whatever is right, choose that path. Not whatever is pleasurable, whatever is right. Choose the right path. Make sure you like I said, make sure you distinguish between the pleasurable from beneficial. So now Yam did tell him about Atman and Brahman. So what is Brahman? I'm going to slightly talk about that. Brahman, he says, nothing can lit up Brahman. It's the inner self that he's talking about, the soul he's talking about. It cannot be lit by any sun or moon. It cannot be revealed by any light, and yet its light lits everything up. That's the light itself. You know, it lits everything up if it wants. It's with the light of Brahman that the consciousness comes into being. That's what he is. So this is, Yama gives a nice metaphor to explain the human condition, and our essential nature is Atman, the self. We are the self. And he uses a chariot example for that. So we are, this is what he said. He said we are the different layers to ourselves. One is the outer physical layer. Another one is a mental layer. We also have intellect, like the buddhi, which is in Hindi we calls it, in the mental layer, and to make sense of things. And now he gives the example how the inner self is related to all this. So let's say horses are our five senses, sight, smell, touch, taste, or hearing. Those are the horses. And the road is the object of the senses, where the horses are running. So what are the reins? The reins are the mind. The reins are the mind. And who's controlling the mind, or who's the chariot driver? That is the intellect. But now it comes to who's right. So but now it's who's the master of that chariot. The master is our inner self, the Atman, or the real us, the spirit in us. That's who is riding us. So people who come out of, people who think that body and mind is our only thing, they come in that Preya, and then who think beyond that, who think that so this is what it is. Moral of this one thing is that just by observing that it's our spirit, not the mind and body who's controlling us. So now it also actually, there is a very beautiful example. I'll just read what I've read. So it says, the knowing self never borns or never dies. The person, the self, the soul who knows that who am I, who truly I am, is never going to be born or never going to die again. Rest, all of us will be coming here again and again, will be, but it's a very difficult path. It's like a razor's edge. This path is not easy, but it does lead to freedom. It does lead to freedom from all bondage. It does lead to the beyond the cycle of what Swarg Lok is, beyond that, to immortality. That's what it takes us. That's what this book says. It has also given an idea. It also introduced us the idea of the people tree. We call it pipal. Pipal tree, it's like, it's mentioned in, they say, Gita also, that it's shown upside down. So the roots are up there, and it's like, it's down. So this means, this is what they have thought of it. It means that the roots are in the unmanifested Brahman, that is the universe, and its expression is the visible universe we live in. So it's, we are just seeing the expression of that immortal that we always talk about. So what I conclude from this text, of course we all know that death is our ultimate truth, but this Upanishad tells us that this cycle of life and death is merely for those who choose the path of pleasure. He who is free from desire beholds him. That's a very strong sentence. So this is way beyond the finest, which is, it's subtle than the subtle. They say this is how they have also described him or her, or it can't be described in any gender, but this is how it's very subtle. It's subtle than the subtle. It's quieter than the quiet, and only few will be able to understand it. And we will only be able to understand if we have that, what we call meher. He will choose, the thing will choose us. Or any sort of knowledge, any sort of study, any sort of part puja, nothing will do. That thing is going to choose us. That's what is going to, this is what it says. And so what I thought, that how the river flows, eager to meet the ocean one day. It goes through cities, it goes through towns, it goes through mountains. But when she finally meets the ocean, she realizes that she is the ocean. She is the ocean. She was never a river. She was the ocean herself. So that's my conclusion to the book. And this is how we relate this to Sikhism, is that how we can be benefited by these philosophies of the universe. These are very, very extensive. They have experienced it. People who have narrated it has experienced it. So we need to be benefited by these philosophies. And the core Upanishad basically deals. The core of Upanishads basically deals with metaphysical, cosmic, and eternal life. But we Sikhs, after Banda Singh Bahadur, has made history as custom, not philosophy. We have literally made it as custom. So we need prominent philosophical and creative truth so we can relate these studies of self to deal with the metaphysical aspects of Guru Granth Sahib, to lead us a better life, or to hopefully achieve immortality. But thank you very much, and if I've said anything that doesn't comply, I'm sorry in advance, but Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thanks, Gurpreet, for introducing the Katha Upanishad to us. I'm pretty sure we're encouraged to pick that book by ourselves and explore it for ourselves. The realm of death intrigues us all. We think about it. We see death everywhere around us. And I think it's our opportunity to see the death of our loved ones through the angles that Katha Upanishad presents, and see how we can see that reality from the wisdom that Katha Upanishad provides. So personally, that's a takeaway that I'm taking. I like the analogy that you gave with regards to the river realizing only when it meets the ocean that it always was a part of the ocean.
So while we are living, we're actually living in the primal consciousness, the supreme consciousness. And we might come back, but we'll still be living in the primal consciousness. And until the cycle of life and death takes us away and merges us fully into the primal consciousness, until our consciousness elevates to that level that it diffuses to the primal consciousness, that's our journey. And how do we go through life, through cycles of life and death? I think the Katha Upanishad has some important lessons for us, important perspectives for us, which do call a serious exploration. Thank you for your book review. With that, I would like to invite upon Amandeep Singh to say a few words to us.
Just 2 minutes. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. I have a quick thing, nothing to say beyond what has already been said, because when I was listening to these books, I was myself in a very reflective mode. I didn't know about certain things that I have learned from these books and the presenters here. So just wanted to say that the way we have actually started developing this, and if this goes well, in future we can probably be in a state of having good authors which might develop from our this book club itself. So we just wanted to make an announcement here that we can if we have really good essays or the reviews that can be written from the books that we are reading, so we from Nad Pragas USA will be able to publish a book which can have essays and the commentaries that we are trying to understand from these talks. It was really enlightening for me personally, and it was a really important aspect that even I didn't know about those shades that the ladies have presented here. So this is like sometimes your own mind becomes comes in a state of a pause, and you try to see things on your through the eye of your mind. So that's what they have brought us to, and there is an element of self-reflection in it. And once again, thank you very much, and it was a really enlightening talk. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Thank you, Amandeep. We appreciate it. As we read the books and we draw insights from these books, and we, undertake our personal journeys, and we think that we have some insights that we want to share with the larger audience, we may leverage that opportunity by writing those insights and potentially getting them published, as Amandeep was suggesting. We're now at the final stage of this session. I would like to take this opportunity to give you a brief reminder of what's in store for us in the session on June 11th. On June 11th, which is when we meet next, we will have 3 book reviews. One will be on The Prophet, a book by Khalil Gibran. Penji Raman Kaur is going to do the book review for that. The second book will be Spirit-Born People, which Shivani Penji will be doing the book review with us. It's a very popular work from Professor Puran Singh's pen. And Guneet Kaur, she is going to present a book review on a book called Toto-chan. It's by a Japanese author, Tatsuko Kuronagi. These are the three book reviews which we will be experiencing next time when we meet on June 11th. Again, I'd like to thank Gurpreet Kaur for her talk on Katha Upanishad today, as well as to all of you for coming here, commencing the journey with us, being a part of the journey with us. I also see some of our male colleagues here. Welcome. You all are welcome to bring your friends and acquaintances to this experience if you think that they might benefit from it. And likewise, I call upon the others in the audience to do so as well. With that, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋ ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਟਾਕ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੜੀ ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟਲੀ ਅਤੇ ਬੜੀ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਨਾਲ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਹੈ. ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੈਸ਼ਨਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਸਿੱਖੀਏ ਅਤੇ ਗਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਰਪੈਚੁਅਲ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਬਣਾਈਏ ਇਸ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.